Welcome back to the Red Dice Diaries. This is just a quick video response. Ian Christensen posted a question to Dave Brian Jackson, aka DBJ, in the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group, asking what you can do about the problem of players in Fate, effectively stacking loads of advantages, boosts, etc., and then just one-shotting a main bad guy. And Sam at Chalice in Chains posted an excellent video response that I'll put a link to in this video. I'm going to try not to cover too much of the same stuff because all of Sam's suggestions were sort of dead on the money. Loosely, they were: don't have your main bad guy be surprised, have them prepared for the players, have them have some sort of fallback position, etc. So what I'd suggest doing is, and this is something that a lot of people seem to miss in Fate, is that anything the players can do, the NPCs can do. So, okay, so yeah, your players can stack up numerous boosts. They've got aspects they can call on. They've probably got stunts, etc. But your bad guy, especially if it's a main bad guy, who are normally sort of gemmed up in a similar way to the player characters, they've got stunts, they've got aspects, they're equally capable of creating boosts. And now you might say,
oh yeah, well, but the players have got loads of fate points and the GM only gets a single little tiny pool of fate points.
Which is sort of true, but the GM gets those fate points per encounter. So when it comes to your final scene, if you're just going into that scene, you've got all your pool of fate points there, ready for your main bad guy and his goons, his flunkies, whatever you want to call them, to use. And also, even if you run out of fate points, start having your opponent create advantages, racking up those free invokes. You don't need fate points to use those free invokes. You just need to be able to make the roll to create the advantage. And since, given the sort of scenario that's been described, your players are probably confronting this enemy who's had some advance notice of them approaching, or they're confronting him in his lair, surely the antagonist will have laid out the scenery, etc., in such a way that, if necessary, he can use them to create advantages. Now, whether this is he's got a moat of oil that he's going to throw a torch into to set on fire to thin the PCs out or split the group, whether it's he's got some hidden archers or some traps hidden about, whatever. If you attack a main bad guy in their sort of central headquarters, they're going to have their shit together and they're going to be ready to stop you. So that's the first point that I'm going to make. And my second and final point is, when it comes to stacking boosts and advantages, common sense always has to reign. Now, common sense can get stretched fairly far, especially when it comes to the sort of high fantasy or sort of pulp style games that Fate tends to be really, really good at. But even so, there's only so many boosts you can really stack that will be applicable all at the same time. Because if you create an advantage, you can only use your invokes on that advantage whilst that advantage is still applicable. So if you set, I don't know, if you set a crate on fire and you're using the smoke and the flames as cover, and then the enemy just has one of his henchmen throw a bucket of water over it and put it out, advantage gone. If you haven't used it, bad times. That's TS. That opportunity has gone. So as well as having the NPC prepared to make their own advantages, have their goons ready, have the scenery set up in a way that benefits them, also have it so they've got some provisions ready to effectively deal with advantages that have been created by the player characters. So there we are. Those are my two suggestions for preventing players stacking advantages and boosts and one-shotting a big bad guy. One, don't forget that the NPC can also create advantages, and they've probably got a lot of their shit together more than the player characters. And two, just throw a big pinch of common sense in there when it comes to how many advantages the player characters can feasibly have at one time. And if you do that, along with the excellent suggestions that were in Sam's video and DBJ's responses, you should be absolutely fine. So until I see you next time, take care and happy gaming.